what power really is. You can do everything right. You can work nonstop, keep the money coming in, check every single box that society lays out for you, and still feel like you're powerless. And I say this as someone who runs a multi-million-dollar company. With my husband, power isn't about how much energy you burn or how much effort you put in. It's not about grinding yourself into the ground, running faster on the hamster wheel, or constantly chasing the next thing. Power is not about energy output. Power is about control. Power is about what you actually have ability to influence, direct, and move forward. In this video, I want to break down what real power looks like, how to stop wasting energy on things that don't matter, and how to finally start using your energy in the right direction. And first, let's talk about one of the biggest traps that keeps people, especially women, confused and stuck: the conversation around feminine energy and masculine energy. Let's get really honest about this so-called idea of feminine energy and masculine energy. People throw these terms around as if they're scientific truths. But the reality is there is no measurement for feminine energy or masculine energy, none. You cannot put it in a chart. You cannot quantify it, and you cannot prove it. It's a made-up construct, one that more often than not keeps women in particular stuck in self-doubt. Here's how the trap works. If you're in your feminine, you're told you should surrender, be soft, let life happen to you, trust that the stars will align, let the universe deliver what you want. But the second you shift into what society labels as masculine, meaning you're competent, decisive, strategic, able to make things happen, crossing items off your list, you're suddenly shamed for being too hard, too aggressive, or not feminine enough. Do you see the setup? You're damned if you do, and damned if you don't. And here's the dangerous part. This polarity teaches women to feel guilty, no matter how they show up. If you're passive, you're told you're weak. If you're decisive, you're told you're masculine. It creates this constant tug of war in your mind where you're questioning yourself instead of trusting yourself. It has nothing to do with power and everything to do with control, keeping people confused so they never step into their full capability. The truth is simple. It's not about masculine or feminine. It's about competence. It's about whether or not you are effective in creating outcomes, period. No energy label in the world will will you more capable. Competence is the only thing that matters when it comes to real influence. So let's strip this down. Are you competent in your communication? Can you articulate what you want, when you want it, and make sure the people around you understand and have the resources to deliver? Can you make decisions without guilt, without hesitation, and with clarity? That's not masculine. That's not feminine. That's called being a capable human being. And every time you buy into the feminine versus masculine debate, you're handing away your power, because instead of sharpening your competence, you're stuck asking yourself which energy you're supposed to be in, and then you feel bad no matter what. That's the trap. That's the distraction. And the longer you live in it, longer you delay stepping into real power. You know this trap because I fell straight into it myself. For a long time, I believed the rhetoric. I told myself, okay, I'll lean more into my feminine energy. I'll soften, surrender. I let things come to me. When things didn't work out, instead of looking at what I could do differently, I blamed everyone else. I thought, well, I'm in my feminine, but nothing's happening. So clearly, the men in my life or the masculine energy around me isn't stepping up the way it's supposed to. Do you see how powerless that thinking is? The moment I started believing in masculine versus feminine energy, I gave up my power. I stopped asking myself how to grow. I stopped taking responsibility for outcomes. I stopped focusing on building competence, and instead I blamed circumstances, people, and energy labels. It wasn't until I dropped that nonsense that everything changed. I realized if I want something, I have to be competent enough to create it. Full stop. No waiting for someone else to balance me. No hoping the universe aligns. No outsourcing my responsibility. When I finally stopped buying into the labels, I stopped wasting energy feeling guilty about how I showed up. I stopped beating myself up for being too much or not enough. Instead, I redirected all that energy into building actual competence, and competence became confidence. And here's what's powerful about that shift. Once you know you can rely on yourself, You no longer obsess about whether you're masculine or feminine, too aggressive or too passive. You simply know, I can handle it. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. You don't need balance. You are competent, and that competence becomes the source of your confidence, your influence, and your power. So here's the question. You have to ask yourself right now, can people count on you? Can they trust that when you say you'll deliver, you'll deliver? Can they trust that when you step into a room, you'll add value, solve problems, and move things forward? Because that is the only real measure of energy, not feminine, not masculine, competence. Now, let's get the next level of power because competence on its own is the foundation. But competence expressed at the right pace is where true influence starts to emerge. Here's the principle. Competence equals speed. Power, at its most basic level, is simply your ability to move things forward. The faster you can move things forward without sacrificing effectiveness, the more powerful you become. And the reverse is also true. The slower you are, the less powerful you are. Think about the people you know who feel powerless in their own lives. Maybe they're friends, maybe they're family, maybe they're even colleagues. They might be kind, might be well-meaning, but deep down, you know they don't carry influence. Why? Because they move at a snail's pace. They make decisions slowly. They waffle back and forth, second guessing themselves. They procrastinate. They take forever to execute simple things. Ask them to handle a task. And weeks later, you're still waiting. Every extra day, every delay, every back and forth email. They're bleeding power. Now compare that to people who are truly powerful, the ones who run companies that generate hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars. I've been in rooms with them, watched them closely. You know what they all have in common? Speed. They make decisions quickly. They execute immediately. They don't add unnecessary time to the equation. Don't drag their feet. They don't overanalyze. They don't agonize over 1,000 scenarios. They trust their competence enough to move fast. And here's the fascinating part. They're not afraid of making the wrong decision because they know they can make another one quickly if they need to. They understand that momentum matters more than perfection. They would rather make 10 fast decisions, correct 3, and keep moving than sit frozen for months waiting for the perfect choice. That's why they leapfrog everyone else. While the average person spends weeks analyzing, the powerful person has already made the decision, executed it, evaluated the result, and adjusted course. This is why I say competence equals speed. The more confident you are, the faster you trust yourself to decide. The faster you decide, the more momentum you create. And momentum compounds. It builds confidence, it creates influence, it expands power. So ask yourself, where are you adding unnecessary time to the equation? Where are you slowing yourself down out of fear? Because every moment you hesitate, you're handing your power away. If you want to step into real power, you have to stop worshiping perfection and start valuing speed. Now, let's talk about something most people overlook because it doesn't sound flashy, but it's the backbone of real power. Here it is. Every time you let yourself down, you diminish your own power. Power is not just about the big visible moves, the deals you close, the promotions you get, the milestones you achieve. Power is also built or destroyed in the small private choices you make every single day. Every small promise you keep to yourself builds your confidence, and every small promise you break chips away at it. Confidence and competence linked. So if you constantly let yourself down in the small things, you'll never trust yourself with the big things. Let's make it simple. You tell yourself you're going to eat better, but you don't. You promise you'll work out, but you skip it. You say you'll need more water, but you reach for the 4th energy drink instead. On the surface, these might seem trivial, but they're not. They're micro decisions that train your brain either to trust you or to doubt you. And once you're trusting yourself, you lose the inner confidence required to show up powerfully in the big arenas, your career, your relationships, your finances. I learned this the hard way in my marriage and business. It was easy for me to say, well, certain things are my husband's job. He's older, he's more experienced. He had already built wealth before I met him. So naturally, he should handle this or that. It was comfortable to step back. But every time I did that, I quietly removed myself from responsibility. And more responsibility I gave away, the more powerless I felt. Then I get frustrated when people didn't see me as powerful in those areas. But how could they? I had taken myself out of the equation. And this wasn't just in business, it trickled into everything. Because when you let yourself down in the small, private places, it bleeds into the public ones. If I didn't hold myself accountable in the little habits, how could I expect myself to suddenly rise to the occasion in the big ones? That cycle kept me trapped until I finally saw it for what it was: self-sabotage. The moment I decided I'm not going to be this person anymore, everything shifted. I started taking radical responsibility for the small things first. I rebuilt my confidence, keeping the little promises. Then I stepped into the bigger responsibilities, and that shifted the dynamic in my marriage, in my business, and in how others perceived me. Because here's the truth: people take you as seriously as you take yourself. If you're constantly letting yourself down, you're teaching everyone else to do the same. But when you prove through consistent action that you can be trusted even with yourself, then others begin to trust you too. That trust is power. That responsibility is power. And it all starts with the small systems you make every single day. So here's a hack I use. Whenever I feel powerless, I ask myself, where am I letting myself down? And without fail, I find an area where I've been avoiding responsibility. Once I spot it, I take it back. Because when you take back the small things, you rebuild the foundation to handle the big things. Now let's move into something that separates people who feel like life is constantly happening to them from people who take control and bend circumstances in their favor. It's this: you have to learn how to use your environment to your advantage. Your environment, meaning your circumstances, your relationships, your workplace, your resources, will never be perfect, ever. Waiting for it to become perfect is the fastest way to stay powerless forever. Powerful people don't sit around hoping the environment shifts for them. They study it, they understand it, and then they learn how to leverage it in order to create the outcomes they want. Let me give you an example. About 6 months ago, one of the biggest contracts in our company blew up. It didn't just disappear quietly, it imploded, threatening revenue, stability, and even morale. In the past, I might have spiraled into stress, thought, why is this happening to us? And wasted weeks in frustration. But that's the powerless way to at it. Instead, I asked, how can I use this? That contract failure became the very opportunity I needed to restructure how we approach deals in the future. It gave me leverage to create new systems, demand more control, and set standards that gave me more authority moving forward. Was it uncomfortable? Absolutely. Was it frustrating? Of course. But because I chose to use it, it became fuel instead of fire. And this is where people miss it. They think challenges mean the environment is against them. But the truth is, the environment is neutral. It's not out to help you, but it's not out to destroy you either. The question is, how do you respond? How do you shape it to work in your favor? If you're in an industry where you're the only woman, you could sit there thinking, nobody includes me, this isn't fair, I don't belong, or you won't flip it because nobody looks like me. I bring a perspective. No one else can. I can relate to a different customer. I can ask different questions. I can position myself as the only one who sees the blind spots. That's an edge. That's leverage. That's you mastering the environment instead of being mastered by it. And it doesn't stop there. Sometimes mastering the environment means reshaping how you communicate. Maybe you're speaking casually when the moment calls for clarity and commitment. Maybe you're withdrawing when you should be leaning in. Maybe you're telling yourself you can't influence decisions, so you take yourself out of the game entirely. When the truth is, the environment isn't blocking you, you're blocking you. Here's the hack. Whenever you feel powerless in a situation, stop and ask, what in this environment am I not exerting power over, and why not? That single question will show you where you're holding back. And once you identify it, you can reframe it and leverage it. This is the mindset of people who stay powerful, even in adversity. They don't just survive their environment. They bend it. They take setbacks, frustrations, exclusions, and obstacles and reframe them into opportunities for influence. That's why they rise. That's why they stand out. And that's why they never stay powerless for long. This brings us to the final of the puzzle, and it's one that almost no one talks about. but it separates the powerful from the powerless every single time. True power lies in your ability to read the room and influence it. Let's break this down. Every room, whether it's a boardroom, a team meeting, a negotiation, or even a family gathering, needs someone to influence it. Someone has to set the tone, move the conversation forward, and create outcomes. If you walk into a room and feel powerless, 9 times out of 10, it's because you haven't yet developed the ability to shift that room's direction. I've been in countless meetings where nobody really knew what was going on. One person pretended to have the answers, spoke with confidence, and everyone just nodded along. People didn't push back, they didn't redirect, they didn't challenge. And do you know why? Because most of the people in that room had already given up their power. They weren't engaged, they weren't influencing, they were just spectators. Meetings like that are a complete waste of time. But here's what powerful people do differently. They understand their presence must create an effect. If you sit through a meeting, keep quiet, don't contribute, and the outcome would be the same. Whether you were there or not, you have no power in that room. And if you consistently show up like that, you're not only powerless, you're invisible. So here's the question. Are you influencing the outcome of the rooms you're in? If the answer is no, then you have 2 options. Either you step up, bring skills, insights, but courage to speak up, or you step out and stop wasting your time in rooms where you add no value. Because powerful people don't keep themselves in spaces where they're just spectators. Because I had a team member come to me once and say, I'm ready to be promoted. On paper, he was doing his job. But when I watched how he showed up in meetings, it was obvious why he wasn't ready. He sat quietly. He didn't propose solutions. He didn't step in when things were going off track. When our numbers started dropping, he didn't speak up ideas. He didn't rally the team. He just watched it happen. And when I pointed this out, he shrugged and said, well, that's not really my job. But here's the reality. If it's not his job, then whose job is it? Mine. And if I still have to do the heavy lifting, why would I promote him? Why would I pay more for someone who's unwilling to influence the outcome? This is where so many people go wrong. They think power is a title. They think power is a promotion. They think it comes when someone else hands it to them. But power isn't about waiting for permission. It's about showing up in a way that changes things right now. And here's the truth. If you want to be powerful, you have to become the person who can walk into any room, understand the dynamics at play, and shift them. That means paying attention. Are people engaged? Are they listening? Do they respond differently when certain people speak? Do they respond when you speak? And most importantly, if the outcome, the meeting doesn't change because you were there, then you're not actually in the game. You're just watching it. Powerful people value their time too much for that. They know that if they're going to sit in a room, they must create an effect. Otherwise, they leave, learn, grow, and return when they can contribute at a higher level. That's what separates leaders from bystanders. So ask yourself, in the rooms you're in right now, are you the one shaping the conversation, or are you just waiting for someone else to? Because that's the difference between leaving powerful and leaving powerless. So here's the truth. We've circled all the way back to power isn't given, it's built. It's not something you unlock by bet in your feminine, masculine energy. It's not something that arrives when the stars align or when someone finally recognizes your worth. Power is created the moment you decide to stop handing it away and start owning responsibility for how you show up. Think about everything we've covered. It all comes back to competence. Competence gives you confidence. Competence gives you speed. Competence keeps you from letting yourself down. Competence allows you to master your environment instead of being mastered by it. And competence makes you someone who can walk into any room and shift it. That's not theory. That's not energy work. That's practical, measurable, undeniable power. And here's the kicker. Nobody can take it from you once you build it. People can doubt you. They can exclude you. They can criticize you. They can underestimate you. But competence silences all of that. When you consistently deliver, when you consistently execute, when you consistently bring results, people have no choice but to acknowledge your power. Even if they don't like you, they'll respect you. Even if they resist you, they'll recognize you. That's the type of power that lasts. I know some of you reading this are tired. You're exhausted from trying to balance energies, from trying to fit into someone else's definition of what powerful looks like, from waiting for others to validate your worth. And I want to tell you, you can drop all of that today. You don't need balance. You don't need labels. You don't need permission. You she need to choose competence. One decision, one habit, one commitment at a time. Because every single time you step up, instead of stepping back, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every time you decide faster, keep a promise to yourself. Master the environment, influence the room. You're building a foundation. No one can shake. That's how you move from feeling invisible to being undeniable. So here's my challenge to you. Stop waiting. Stop overanalyzing. Stop outsourcing your power to some abstract idea of energy. Build it. Decide today that you will become the most competent version of yourself. Not someday, not when it's convenient, right now. Because the truth is, the world doesn't need more people hoping they'll be balanced. The world needs more people who can actually deliver. The world needs people who can solve problems, create solutions, and influence outcomes. And that person can be you if you're willing to take responsibility and do the work. Power is built, power is practiced, power is earned. And once you build it, no one can ever take it away. So the question isn't, are you in your feminine or your masculine? The real question is, are you competent enough to be powerful?